One to back in business, supporting working moms in insurance, and happy Mother's Day. I'm Margaret Russi-Milkent. I am the chair of the Women in Insurance Initiative for Million Women Mentor STEM Connector. And once again, we've got a first for you today, a very, very important spotlight on mothers, mothering, motherhood. And as I was reflecting on how this moment made me feel, having this time with all of you and our amazing moderator and panelist, I will tell you it's right and it's time. So I did a little bit of research because I like to do that, and I found a beautiful essay that Gloria Steinem had written in 2007. And her premise was, what if we reimagined mother, not as a noun, but as a verb? So we're going to reimagine today. To mother and the art of mothering. To mother is to care about the welfare of another person as much as one's own. To mother depends on empathy and thoughtfulness, noticing and caring. To mother is the only paradigm in which the strong and the weak are perfectly matched in mutual interest. And anyone can mother, a woman or a man. So, with that moment of reflection, I offer you all a moment of celebration, a moment of gratitude. I am so inspired by our panelists, our moderator, Laura, Naomi, Jamala, and Leslie. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your candor. Thank you for the fun. Thank you for everything that you're going to share with your heart and your head. And now over to you, Laura. Enjoy, and thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. And thank you for joining us today to kick us off. We were just talking as we were getting organized before the session of how excited we are about today's conversation. And that's what it's really meant to be, a conversation where we are going to talk about real life experiences of working moms, us as working moms in insurance. And we're going to talk about how we've shaped strategy, how we lead, but how we did it while we were also raising or raised children. You all know it's not easy. And it's certainly not one size fits all. And one of the things we're going to hear about today is each of us have had our own personal journey. So welcome, welcome. Welcome to the conversation. I can imagine that we're sitting here having a glass of tea, a cup of tea or a glass of wine, but we're here on the screen in this great virtual world that we still can leverage. So a few housekeeping items. This is really meant to be a conversation that includes all of you. So here's what to expect. We will be using the chat feature. So share your ideas. We're going to be sharing resources. Take a moment and introduce yourself to others in the chat. We're also going to be using the Q&A function during the conversation. So feel free as we're going along to post your questions at any time, and we will weave in and get to as many of them as possible. And we're going to leave some time at the end for a live Q&A. So if you'd like to ask something personally, just raise your hand and we'll unmute you and you can ask your question. And that is how we'll make this more interactive and more impactful. We're also going to try and get to know you better. So in a few minutes, we're going to launch some polling questions that kind of level sets who you are, what your experiences are, and so forth. And we'll also try to use that to leverage into our conversation. Before we get started, I want to recognize a group of people. So if we can move to the next slide. I want to recognize the Catalyst Committee, which is a group of volunteers behind the Insurance Initiative who have created this webinar and other messages and information on behalf of women in insurance. Ladies, thank you for your time, your passion, the action that you take. Remember, it's progress, not perfection, as we always say to ourselves. I love working with all of you. If you could move on to the next slide. It's interesting because Margaret and I did not talk about this in advance, but this is the quote we decided to start off our day with. Mother is a verb. We all play mother roles in our life. It is not something, it's something you do, it's not who you are. So we mother each other, we mother our children. It's just part of the world we live in. And it's interesting that Margaret and I both settled on a similar quote. So let's start moving to getting to know the panelists. We're going to do a spin on what their intros are. We're going to talk about a little bit about who we are, but who we are as mothers, what our individual motherhood journeys are. I have three great panelists today. As we were prepping, we realized we've all had very different journeys, and it's been wonderful getting to know you, and you're going to be amazed by their stories. But I will start. I've been in the workforce, and it's scary for me to say this, over 40 years. 30 years in insurance in a variety of roles in corporations, and I currently serve on the board of directors of several insurance companies. More importantly is about my personal journey, and my career and my motherhood journey have had many pivots over the years. My motherhood journey started in 1982 when my first daughter, Abby, was born, and she may be on this call, so there, you got mentioned. I was working at a Big 8 accounting firm as a consultant. I was on the partner track. I loved my job. I loved my work. I loved my team, but it involved being on the road a lot, getting on a plane on Sundays and coming back late on Friday nights, lots of long hours, lots of weekends. So you enter a baby into the situation and it becomes a little challenging. I had no working mother role models. It was a time when we hit our pregnancies. There was no maternity leave, no FMLA. I saved my vacation and used it for my short-term disability to extend the amount of time I could be home with my first daughter. I had my second daughter, Sarah, who may also be on the call, in the summer of 1994. And that's when my first career pivot happened. There was a major acquisition that I was in charge on. And my first week back from leave, I got on a plane with my team and spent every hour of the next month in California, except for one 18-hour time period. I flew home to say hello and come back, and then headed back, leaving a 2.5-year-old and a 3-month-old at home. Like I said, I loved my job, but I had to figure out something else to do. And I was recruited by a close friend, was a business colleague who has become a close friend to CNA, who told me I could keep doing what I was doing, but come over to insurance and you won't have to be on the road all the time. My youngest daughter, Emma, not sure if she's on the call, was born in 1997 when I was a senior vice president at CNA. Still loving my work, very busy, but not on the road all the time, which made a big difference. My career has had several pivots since then. One included taking a 7-year break from CNA, leaving in 2003 so I could be home with my family, and then returning to Gallagher Bassett 7 years later as their global CFO. We can talk about that a little bit later. My family is my pride and joy. They are my why, if you've ever been asked that question. Today, I'm the real life mother of the Brady Bunch. I have 3 daughters, 3 bonus sons, 2 daughter-in-laws, 2 son-in-laws, 2 significant others, and 5 grandchildren. So you see my world can be busy, but I've done pivots along the way to try and manage, I won't use the word balance, work, family, and priorities. So that's my story. Let's meet the rest of the panel. Jamila, I think you're the next one on.
Thank you so much for that, Laura. When we got to talk on the introductory calls when we were meeting each other, I heard some of your story, but hearing you recount it all again, it's just beautiful, and just the pivots that you've made. I hope your girls are on and celebrating you today and always. So I'm Jamala Arland. From a professional perspective, I'm president and CEO of the U.S. Life Division at Genworth. I do that while also raising a 3-year-old. And my motherhood journey has, I would describe it as a roller coaster. It started with IVF. And for anyone on the call who has experience with infertility or fertility treatments, IVF includes lots of doctor's appointments, so fitting those in to your work schedule, but also receiving calls while you're in meetings because the doctor is, following up on some lab reports or something like that. There are many times where I stepped out of a conference room to take a call that was not good news and had to put on a good face and walk back into a room and re-enter a meeting while my personal life was falling apart. And my motherhood journey also includes infant loss. My first son had a congenital heart defect and passed away. So, losing your first child after infertility was a challenge. I took some time off work for bereavement leave, extended bereavement leave that my company provided. And returning to work, I came back with just a different lens on my motherhood. I was a mother without a child in my arms. I was on maternity leave without a child in my arms. And, in the insurance space, I love something that Margaret said when she started out about mothering being that perfect match of the weak and the strong. And that really is what insurance is, right? It's providing that solid security for people in a moment of weakness, in a moment of loss, in a moment of need. And that time really connected me to what it meant to be an insurance professional and the purpose in the work that we do. Because all the places where we connect with our policyholders, generally there's some loss associated with it, whether it's a death, even in a good news story like a retirement, there is a loss of a prior life in a way. And it really connected me to purpose. My motherhood journey continued with surrogacy. So I leaned on another woman to help me become a mother. And then I made the decision to take 6 months off work when my second son was born, to be with him, to bond, to spend that special time. And I returned to work again with just a new view on caregiving, on mothering, on taking care of somebody. And 18 months later, I was promoted to the role that I currently have of president and CEO of, the largest division of a Fortune 500 company. So, there's been a roller coaster along the way, but also, we'll talk a little bit about, how we balance, motherhood with our professional aspirations and our professional journeys. And, as we talk, one of the things that I hope to share is that you can have it all, but you don't have to do it all.
That is such an important message, which I know we'll spend some time talking about it in our conversation, but it's like, you don't have to do it all. Actually, I don't know if anyone can do it all. So being able to support and lean on others. So we're going to take 1 second before I introduce Leslie. And if we can launch the poll so that people can complete the poll and we can have that going while we finish our introductions. But if all the participants could fill that out, that would be great. I appreciate that. We'll get that input and insights for the rest of our conversation. And now, Leslie, if you would please introduce yourself and welcome to the panel.
Thank you. Such great panelists to be a part of. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I've been with Zurich for 27 years. I've actually just moved to a new role. I'm heading up our innovation and process engineering for our commercial insurance. I'm a mother of 2 children. They are 21 and 18. My son is 21. My daughter is 18. I have a guess a little bit unique. My husband is in the police force, and I had a lot on my plate while I was raising them. My co-parent was working 12-hour rotating shifts from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I left my home state, so I really didn't have any support from family. I had lots of ambition. I was a high-performing employee, and I was just trying to figure it out, feeling much like a single parent. So that's really just the quick summary of my story.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us. Look forward to all our conversations. The poll is still going on, so if you haven't had a chance to complete it, please do so. And we'll close it in a minute. But let me introduce Naomi, who also has a different story. We all have our own stories that have influenced our world. So Naomi, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. And Jamal and Leslie, it's an honor to be on the panel with you all. Yes, my story is a little bit different. I am a mother and a grandmother. So a little later in my motherhood journey. Professionally, I am the Chief Administrative Officer for an organization called the Mutual Group. We're a relatively new organization doing insurance services for mutual insurance companies. In my role, I have human resources, marketing, communications, and executive support. My motherhood journey. So I married my high school sweetheart my last year of college, and ended up having 2 children, Haley and Colby, who are now 37 and 35. Unfortunately, ended up not being the marriage that we were hoping it would be. And so fast forward 6 years later, found myself a 26-year-old divorced mother of 2. Some of you on the call may be able to relate to that. And while we were preparing, we were talking about, there's certainly still work to do, but what a long ways we've come. So Laura, similar to you, as I think back, my babies were 6 weeks old when I went back to work because we didn't have real good leave, and at the time couldn't afford to do anything different. And then fast forward as a single mama, have to make lots of sacrifices. So the journey during that time was 12 years before I met my husband, Steve, now. And so as I think back at the time, and my kids and I have really good conversations about there were sacrifices during that time. It's just the reality of it in that situation, and sacrifices I made and sacrifices they made for the good of our family unit of 3. So like I said, fast forward again, 12 years, married my husband, Steve. I also have a bit of the Brady Bunch. I have 2 children and 2 bonus, I'm gonna use that, sons, and then we have 4 grandchildren that we love to be a part of all of their lives. They're all not super close, so balance that as best we can. And then, like I said, thinking about where we've been and where we're going, I'm so happy that we're having this conversation and not just a panelist of talking heads, but really talking about honoring and celebrating where we've come in the places that we have, and then really having those discussions about where we need to continue to go. So happy to be here.
So thankful you're here, and we're going to get into some Q&A in a minute. So let's start with, let me tee this up. We're going to close the poll. So if Kylie, if you could please close the poll, thank you very much. And we'll move to the next slide. I'm going to highlight a few statistics that kind of are probably not surprising to any of us, but just to kind of emphasize the importance of this conversation. And one is women make up 60% of the insurance workforce. So we are the backbone of the insurance industry. Yet when it comes to leadership roles and supporting working parents, there's still work to do. A lot of progress, but still work to do. So something to keep in mind. And then the next slide. Roughly 70%, and I saw it as up as high to 75% of mothers in dual income households are also the primary caregivers, the ones who are setting up the summer school sections and figuring out what to do after school care, and how do you manage doctor's appointments, and what do you do when someone's sick, and all of those types of things. So the reality is that shapes what we can do in our careers, our opportunities, our challenges, etc. And while, like we have discussed, there's been great progress, there's lots of opportunity, and maybe there's some nuggets that come out of this conversation you as you are on your journey, or things you can be doing as a leader if you support working parents in the insurance industry. So it's just some stats to keep in mind. I am a digit head, a data person, so that kind of comes with my role. So let's look at the poll results, and then we'll get into the questions. So are you currently balancing work and parents? So 50%. with young children, 34% for older children. So there's your number. There's our 75% who are balancing, working. Some that are not parenting, maybe they're past it, or maybe they're thinking about it. So hopefully there's some nuggets there. And then thank you for those who support and lead others on your teams. This is important information and insights for you. Who holds the primary caregiving role? Am I supposed, oh, there, I can scoot this down. 43% is me, 7% my partner, 40% shared equally. Yay, that is amazing. That's incredible. So that's an awesome statistic. How supportive is your organization of working parents? Very supportive. It's great to say 60% on here, somewhat supportive. So those are high statistics. Glad that not 0% not supportive. Yay, that's an amazing statistic. And which benefit or support has made the biggest difference in your life? Parental leave is 10%. Flexible schedule is 50%, and I would that would be mine. The flexibility to do what you need to do to balance all the things you try to balance, and a manager, team, and culture at 38%. And what do you hope to gain from today? And hopefully we achieve this together. Practical tips, 23%, community and support, which I think is really important. Leadership insights, and just here to listen and learn. So great insights for all of us as we get into our questions, and we're going to take down the slides and put our little Brady Bunch up here. And we're going to get into some questions. And I think it's my first one, and we could probably spend the whole conversation on this. But it is, does work-life balance really exist? Yes, no, and why? And I'm going to ask this of all of you, and I'm going to start with Naomi.
Sure. I think that we're all laughing because I'm guessing we're going to answer it fairly similarly. Balance, I think, is a fallacy, and I think we're all getting better at saying that. As I think about it more, my journey as a mother, grandmother, and then hopefully as a leader, while balance probably never exists, true balance, flexibility and trade-offs do. And so, Laura, you just kind of talked about it, right? There are days that life needs to win. There are days that work needs to win. There are maybe hours within a day, a week or a month where that happens. So flexibility, I think, has to be key. Trade-offs, I think, is what happens, and it shifts depending on the need, maybe the age of the children and what's going on in life.
I love to jump in.
Go ahead.
I love Naomi said that, because you talk about flexibility and trade-offs, and I love this question, but also hate this question, but I love to answer this question, and I feel like men are never asked this question, but I'm glad that we're talking about this question. When you talk about flexibility, so I had this eureka moment in a yoga class. So speaking of flexibility, and the instructor it's Peloton yoga. So they're, motivational as well. And I tell this story a lot, and he said, very similar to what you said, it's not whether a perfect balance exists, but whether in any moment you're figuring out what choices are bringing you to an optimal situation, right? And he was talking about it physically, but I really took away from that too, like just this whole thing of work-life balance. And just the framing of that question suggests it's a binary, like one or the other. When we live our lives in this fluid state, we're in each other's homes. Looks like you're at work, Naomi. We're in each other's homes, on a regular basis with our hybrid work environments. And this idea that the things are separate, I do agree it's a fallacy. And I think it really comes to being intentional about choices in any moment. So is this moment the moment where I need to be parenting first? Is this moment where I am an employee first? Am I a leader first? Am I a wife first? Am I a friend first? And having flexibility in our work schedules allows us to be that whole person, where depending on what the most important thing or the greatest need in any moment, we can shift and flex to support that thing.
It's so important. And Leslie, why don't you share your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, much of the same. I think it depends. You think there's only so many hours in the day, and obviously all the studies show that women are still spending 3 times the care and household duties. So that alone tips it to no, because we really just can't invest as much time in getting noticed at work if we're focused on home. But if you listen to the podcast interview I did with Megan, the great Megan Bell, I shared stories about how I experienced, and many of us experienced, the scales tipping too far during the pandemic and afterwards in terms of the amount of additional responsibilities we felt like we were taking on, the burdens for both work and home. My principles kind of are the same in terms of never having balance, but maybe trying to gain it through the use of asking for help, outsourcing where you can. And I think it goes back to what Naomi and Jamala were saying, is finding flexibility. And in order to do that in the world of business, you have to find a leader that is willing to allow that flexibility and help you achieve whatever you need instead of whatever is just offered to everyone.
I remember, do you ever do the one word thing where you take a word and it's your word for the year and you're supposed to figure out? One of my words once was balance. And then I finally, at the end, I'm like, this is nuts. I can't balance it. Balance is those things that are like, it's even.
Perfect. Yeah.
And it's not. It could flow by morning, it could flow by day, it could flow by week, it could flow by season. And we just have to understand that, because there's so many things we're trying to juggle. I like the word harmony. I've been trying to use harmony better, but balance is just a tough word. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And it brought many more gray hairs to my head, and once you could release that, it's better off. So this kind of leads me to the next question, and it's like, what support system? And Leslie, I'm going to lead with you. You started on this a little bit. What support systems made the biggest difference, formal or informal, when you returned after having your first child or second child?
Yeah, thanks. I would say, just first off, it is so much better than what it was. I mean, Laura, you kicked off kind of really eloquently with what was not available. We have so many more resources available now. And, for example, at Zurich, we have just out this year a new benefit for our employee assistance plan called Maven Maternity. It's holistic support for coaching through pregnancy, postpartum, newborn, returning to work, all of those really important milestones. We didn't have that, but my advice is, start with the benefits that you have available, recommend them, talk about them. I didn't have quite the situation, but I also had a lot of friends at work. That's how it used to be when we were all in the office. You had friends at work, you found your people. I used them to talk about breastfeeding and childcare and how not to feel guilty about having a career that I cared about, because we were all in it together. And those conversations really helped me put myself first in terms of what I had to do and to leverage them. I also felt like I wasn't speaking out about the inconveniences at the time, but it was more in reflection. So some of these things helped me. It's just talking about it out loud, talking more with other women at conferences or in groups. And one of the things I realized after going to a women's conference for one of my earlier first in time is that pregnancy parking was a thing that some company offered. And I had the opportunity to have a one-on-one with our CEO at the time. And I just recalled saying, like, I can't believe it. Like, I would have really appreciated having pregnancy parking, navigating the stairwells and the parking garage. It's difficult. And 3 weeks later, she implemented pregnancy parking. And I was like, wow, this stuff helps. And all it takes was just kind of noticing and connecting the ideas. And so I would just say, sometimes those things are, use what you have, talk to other people, and then don't be afraid to have that conversation and share it with people that can actually make the change in your company. That's what makes the difference when you come back to work, is feeling like you're not alone and being able to make changes for not just yourself, but those coming next.
And a lot of the things we're going to talk about is others speaking. What would you have liked when you were pregnant? And, I'm past I'm past those days. But now I don't have a fear of speaking up to say, hey, have we thought about this? Should we consider this? When you said I went back to work at 6 weeks, do you not realize you're not sleeping at 6 weeks and your body is not healed at 6 weeks? But yet there's so many people who have to be back in the office at 6 weeks because there's no way they could take. And so speaking up for those who may not feel comfortable as they're going through it, I feel is part of our job in our roles in companies, in our roles in the industry, on calls like this, because there is, I'm sure, hesitancy to speak for yourself. So speak for others when you see stuff. And I love that example. It's like, that's such a simple thing. Pregnancy. Yeah. Who wants to waddle across? Sorry, I waddled across the parking lot. 12 rows back to get to the office. I mean, come on. And when it's 100 degrees or raining or whatever. So anyway, those are great. Naomi, what was the most important support system for you?
Yeah, I would just start where you just both left off. Someone put a comment in about currently pregnant and the nausea is real. Like when I think back at when I was pregnant, and it's been a long time ago and things have changed, but you even had to hide that. It was embarrassing to be sick at work. And so to be able to talk about it openly, and that's normal. And if you need to go lay down, if you need to, take a break, if you need to do those things, we should be open to it. I think that being able to talk about it, I think about Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental, right? Like if you have someone around you that is struggling with something, to be able to talk about it and have those open discussions is good. That didn't exist when I was pregnant back in the day. I hope it exists now. I think we're much better about that. I also think for me, there's this notion of personal board of directors, and it's kind of more around work and how you progress your career, but I think about that in life too, right? So having that personal board of directors. So if your kid ends up being sick, who do you call? If you need to take a child to the doctor, you have an important meeting, who do you call? Who's that person you call when you say, I can't take another day, like I'm overwhelmed and I need. I saw Simon Sinek talking about 8 minutes. It takes 8 minutes to help someone feel like they're not alone. So who's your 8-minute call person? Those kinds of things was what was most important to me, to have people that I could call. We were talking about before we started about this. Used to be, we would say we're super women and we have to do it all. Well, we're still super women. We just don't have to do it all.
Absolutely. And, that's, I think, Leslie, a few minutes ago, you said, put yourself first. That I think is one of the hardest things to do as mothers. And that's one of the things is, well, I'll take care of it. And I don't want to rely on others and whatever. And we've got to get over, that the classic, when you're on an airplane, they say, put your own air mask on first before you do someone else, because you're no good to anyone else. And I think that's one of the hardest things that we deal with. But so we're going to flip it back to Leslie for a second. Tell us about a hard moment you navigated and what you learned from it.
Yeah, so I think it was after my second, and I had 2 littles at home, and I was completely overwhelmed with just everything. It was like you don't realize how much more of a multiplier each person you add to your family is. There's more baths, there's more stories, there's more appointments, more activities, more birthday parties, and on and on and on. And as I mentioned, I was really oftentimes by myself with my husband's job being and his shifts being so erratic. But I was fortunate enough to finally have enough to move my kids from daycare to a nanny. And I did this. This was one element of, I just couldn't navigate by myself anymore. I was that person that everybody was standing around waiting for to pick up their kids. I was always late. I was always the one where they were asking for that second outfit and rolling their eyes because they knew I didn't have it or I'd forgot something. It was just very, very difficult to have a big job at work and then manage all of those people that required all that additional care. So it was just very hard overall. And I think one of the other things that I really navigated was that shift and that support from some of the other senior women in my organization. And they helped me understand that was an option. And then in addition, not only was it an option financially, but then how do I actually get the best out of my outsourcing by using my nanny a little smarter? So a senior female leader just shared like, hey, maybe I used my nanny for getting birthday party gifts and for running my errands and doing all these other things. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So then I hired a cleaning person as well, because what am I doing? This is just not valuable. I'd rather be with my family. And then I started using my nanny to iron my laundry, drop stuff off, pick up birthday party gifts, and manage schedules and things like that. It really changed my outlook. One, it was, I'm not alone. I can ask for help. And these are things that are easy enough for her to do during the day with the kids. It gives them something to do. And I really appreciated the advice during that time when I needed it. In COVID, I even added on more. I started using meal services to sort of plan the meal. And I thought, why didn't I think about this earlier? It's another way, like all this stuff that we take on, we think is so important to, pick up after the kids and do things perfectly in the house or worry about all of these gifts being right. Leverage people, just ask for help, use as much as you can if you can afford it. Again, I realized that I was very fortunate that I could afford it, but it definitely made the difference for me. And I figured out how to really get more when I was at home with the kids and putting down my phone and not worrying about things. I could spend the time. I wasn't trying to rush around and clean up and stuff. So that to me was game changing.
My husband always said when Brady Bunch, remember? So I have my current husband. He's my lifetime husband for sure. But we got back together, and I was at Gallagher working full time, and it's snowing, and I go out to shovel the snow before I would go to get to the office to drive. And he's like, "What the heck are you doing?" He goes, "You need to outsource that." And I'm like, I'm good Midwestern stock. I'm going to go shovel the snow. And it was just like, but someone has to hit you in the head. It's like, why are you doing that? And again, there's a privilege in being able to do some of that stuff. But I think the message is the same regardless, is rely on others. Focus on what's the most important things. You don't have to do it all. Just keep saying, every affirmations every morning, say those things to you. So, okay, so there's some great activity going on in the chat, and I love it that people are asking questions and others on the chat are helping with those questions. So this is exactly what I wanted to see, and we'll come back to some of the additional questions in there, but let's go on to a few other questions. Jamal, I wanted you to talk about, the question is around CEO succession planning, and you mentioned this in our planning conversation and then in your own introductions, but you were still part of the CEO succession plan when you were having babies, taking time off, and so forth. What helped you re-enter the workforce? How did you make that happen? Because that is should not be underestimated.
And for me, taking time off when we were having my second son, that was a very personal decision to make, right? Both for our family and also, what impact that may have for my career. And there were a couple of things I thought about from a professional perspective as we made that decision. The first thing was that the best representation of my leadership was how well my team performed when I was not there. So to the extent that they could do a great job, they could be successful. That was a representation of how I prepared them, my leadership. So believing that I could step away for 6 months, that they would be successful, and also believing that that would be a positive reflection on me when I came back. That was one thing that I kind of got my head around. The second thing, and this one was interesting, it was that I got okay with the idea that I was replaceable. So if I came back 6 months later and somebody stepped up and they were doing a better job in some way, that was okay. So I had my mindset to, I'm going to come back and things are not going to be the same. They're not going to be the same after 6 months, 6 weeks when you take that maternity leave. Things are going to be different. So how do I re-enter? Not necessarily expecting to do exactly the same things in exactly the same way, or that people haven't moved along or things haven't changed in our processes, in our the evolution and the problems that have been solved when I wasn't there. That was going to be a mistake to make, to think that things were just going to fall back to the way that they were. So being okay with the idea that maybe things, you know, I lost an opportunity in some way. It opened my mind to the idea that I could create another opportunity by coming back and assessing the situation in the company as it was in that moment, not how it was when I left at 6 months. So that was the professional side. I had been at that time, I'd been at Genworth for 18 years. So in some ways, I had built up a reputation that allowed me to be in the position to say, you know, just with our family history, that you know, I needed personally, I wanted to take this time off to bond with my son. I didn't have the privilege of carrying him. So spending those early months was something that was really important to me. And no matter any trade-off that I was making from a career perspective was not going to balance what I was potentially giving up by not having those moments with him very early on. And like you used the word, Laura, that it's a privilege to be able to do those things. One, financially, but two, it was a privilege to have a company who supported me in taking that time off, and also keeping me on a CEO succession plan, even though I had come forward and said, I am prioritizing in this moment. The optimal thing for me is to take this 6 months off with my family. And they had confidence in me or belief in me that I came back and, you know, maybe I could still be on the CEO succession plan. And when I returned to work, my HR leader, she said to me, maybe it was like 6 months after I came back, she asked me, who is supporting you? Because she asked me, how are things going? I'm like, things are great. I'm doing all the stuff. Work's going good. You know, everything's great. Everything's perfect. That's the facade that we put on. And she said, who is supporting you? And I was like, whoa. And it was that in that moment, looking at her asking me that question, the thing that I realized is that the skill that made me successful at work, I was not leveraging it at home. Delegation.
Yeah.
So I had a reset with my husband about what we were doing, because the mom guilt is real. Like I signed and it wasn't like, you know, by default, I signed myself up to be the first call if, you know, something happened at daycare. I signed myself up to be the one to be at every single doctor's appointment. I signed myself up to do all the laundry because I wanted to fold his little clothes in a certain way and put them in the drawers a certain way, and my husband never did it right.
You gotta let that go. You gotta let that
right?
go.
Exactly. Yeah, you do have to let those things go. But sometimes baby clothes and cute little rows are so cute. Cute little rows of baby clothes it just melts your heart. But exactly, you have to kind of be okay with, you know, what is the most important thing. And perfect rows of baby clothes wasn't the most important thing. And we had that reset. It was also hard. It wasn't even just kind of what are the things that I'm going to give to him. It was hard for me to let those things go and feel that it's okay as a mom to not be the first call. It was almost, well, of course I'm the first call. I'm the mom. That's what moms do. And to release that was also releasing maybe a view of maybe what I don't know, made up what motherhood might be or what it was required to be a good mom. And those aren't the things that make you a good mom. The things that make me a good mom are that I have my boundaries, that when I am done work in a particular, when we pick up our son from daycare, work phone, work computers are closed and in another room until he's in bed. And if I need to go back online later, then I do that. So being intentional in those moments and those spaces that we have as a family. So my husband is now the first call at daycare. He is the first person if we need to stay home, you know, for a sick day. He's the first person to do that because he has more flexibility in his job. But we also had to make that intentional decision as a family that my career was going to be the one that was going to, you know, be prioritized over his. And that had to be something that he was okay with too. Luckily, I have a husband who's progressive and who is an amazing dad. And he's at first call at daycare. He's responsible for dinner because, like you said, Leslie, you know, sometimes it's okay to outsource and delegate those things. He does the dinner plans and I get to do cuddles.
Yeah.
So it's really about kind of figuring out, you know, what's the right thing for your family, for your situation, and whether it's your partner, whether it's, you know, a parent or a friend that that you kind of have a shared parenting relationship with. Like all the other ladies said, is about finding that network, that village. It really does take a village to raise a child, and for a woman to have an amazing career. All those things go together, and it's about finding your village. And the other thing that we did as a family was be intentional about our time. So on weekends, we break each day into segments. So there's morning before nap and then the afternoon segment. So there are 4 segments in a weekend, and we both get alone time, so time for ourselves. So 1 segment for ourselves each. That means that the other person has one-on-one time with our son during that segment. So that's 2 segments. Then we have 1 family time segment and 1 couple segment. And we get a babysitter for the couple segment. So that way we can do all of the things in our roles as families and maintain all the relationships within our family. Not just our parenting relationship, but our spousal relationships and our relationship with ourselves. So that was something that we started last year, and it's been great for our marriage. It's been great for the time that we spend with our son. And then we also get that one-on-one time with him too.
Well, it's amazing how many of the things, the nuggets that you just said in there, but the intentionality, being present, you know, that's one of the things. It's like if you're there and you're here, you're nowhere because you're not fully focused. So carving out that time is so important. There was messages in there of role model. You're a role model of I'm going to do this and I'm going to set these boundaries. And I've seen male CEOs do the same thing who said, no, I'm not available. And that sets a role model and a tone for the organization that it's like, no, from 5 to 8, I'm doing dinner and I'm having my family and I can get back on. And again, it sounds easy. It sounds easier than it actually is, but I think it's so important. This is not going to surprise any of you. We could go on for like 5 hours and we only have 13 minutes left. So, and we have a dozen more questions we were going to cover, so maybe we have to do a part 2. So I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then we'll open up a little bit for Q&A. So apologize to my panel for all the questions and works we were gonna talk about. But one thing that I want to ask is, what advice would you give to new or expecting moms and parents? And I would like each of you to answer. Oh, okay. I'll go with Leslie first. I didn't tell you who. Sorry. Moderator, put your moderator hat on.
I think going back to, so what, use the people around you, really, you know, use the advice of others. Try to leverage all the resources around you at your company. Find out more if you don't already know. And make it better for others. Don't be satisfied with the injustice that exists in kind of a systematic way. We sometimes see things as they are and expect it to be so, and don't do that. So try to notice when things are a hassle and think about talking and how you might be able to do it different. I would also have you, suggest, make sure that, if there's parental leave for your spouse or parent or partner, have them use it as well, so that you are creating an environment in the future where there is more equality in terms of caretaking across both men and women. And I think as you think about how that will help you going forward, they will be able to share more of the responsibilities than perhaps that imbalance that we feel in past generations.
So true. Naomi, would you want to go second on that?
Sure. I would give two on the personal side. We actually have an expecting mother in my world right now. And one of the things I said to her is the best piece of advice I got was don't listen to anybody's advice unless you want to. You just have to trust your gut. You have to trust and then ask for help. I think kind of like Leslie on the, mothering and being a working mother. I would say be proud of what mothering will bring to you. I saw a quote that said, motherhood doesn't change who you are. It makes you a better version of who you always were. And that really stuck with me. And I think about all of the skills that moms or anybody who mothers have, the resilience, the ability to make decisions, the emotional intelligence, the empathy, all of those things make you a great mother and makes you a great leader and employee and anything else you want to do in life. So just honor that, really be proud of that, and figure out how you use those skills across the board.
I love everything that you guys said. One of the things that was most important for me to hear, most impactful for me to hear when I was a new mom was that you're doing a good job. What you're doing a good job. And you're doing the best job for your kid. You're the best mom for your kid. Those things were important for me to hear. Another one for those who are expecting or hope to have children in the future. I also had read this thing that said once you have conceived of the idea of becoming a mother is born. And something clicks on in you in that mothering way. And Naomi said it as it relates to leadership. The things that you learn, patience, empathy, tolerance, self-deprecation, being vulnerable, all those things that you learn on your journey to being a mother, and while you're a mother, they translate so well to the boardroom. And we've had this idea that those things don't belong in the boardroom or don't belong in leadership in companies, but those are exactly the things that motivate people and drive them to be their best. And it's exactly the kind of thing that humanizes the insurance industry and the work that we're doing. That's what we're in the business of. We're in the business of peopling, of mothering. That's what insurance does. So be proud and, bring your full motherhood to work.
It's interesting that you say that because I have been accused of being too transparent, too emotional, and I'm like, no, that's my passion, and that is superpower. And yeah, I get emotional. Like if we're talking about, I was CFO, we've gone through restructurings. If it ever gets easy to you, you've lost your soul. I mean, it's just not a good thing. And I've had to stand up in front of a group of people and tell them that some of them are going to lose their jobs. And I cried. And people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, are you kidding me? I made a promise to these people, a commitment. This is who I am as a human, and I can't hide it. And I feel so much of it, I had to hide myself over the years. And I think it's actually one of our greatest strengths that we can connect and we can mother our people and take care of them. So
Laura, I would just add on to that. I felt like I had to hide at home about my work, and I had to hide at work about my home or my personal. So I felt like, that changed for me over time, but that guilt of I'm not giving enough to either is actually a real thing. And you just have to start to let go of it and be present. Like you said earlier, be present wherever you are and give your best. And that's it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, wow, we have 7 minutes left. There's a whole bunch of questions embedded in here. So requests for part 2, which if I can convince my lady friends to dedicate another hour, we will do a part 2 because this is a rich, complicated topic, and happy to do that. If there anyone, you're going to help me out here, my expert team behind me. If someone wants to ask a question live, we can't see you, but we'll be able to hear you. Raise your hand. And then how do I see someone's raised their hand? Okay. Oh, no, that's not it. I just raised my own hand. There you go. So, if anyone has a question, maybe it's in the participants view. There's no one wanting to raise their hands. If someone's trying to raise their hands, I apologize. Write real quick in the chat. Otherwise, we will. So there is. Okay, no one is raising their hands. Thank you, trusty people behind the screens. So Marin asked a question in the chat. Any suggestions on how to speak to your kids and help them understand our career is important and fulfilling and part of our lives, so that they understand when we leave or are unable to be with them, they don't feel like we're making a choice over them. So do you have any parting thoughts on this? Because it'll probably be our wrap up because I've got 5 minutes left. So anyone wants to go? Leslie, go. Naomi.
I'll let Naomi go.
You want Naomi?
I would just say, it's been a minute since I've had little ones, but I think it's back to what we said earlier on. And I love, Jamal, I wrote it down. What do you have to optimize in the moment? So that that your children see that sometimes it is optimizing work. Sometimes it's optimizing church, whatever it is. And it is optimizing them when the time is right too, so that they always know that they're part of the decision. But the reality is it may not always be them at every minute of every time.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that, sharing that optimization with your children. My son's only 3 years old, so I don't know that he necessarily understands work. What he knows of work is when we did a Halloween party last year. So I don't know if that's what he thinks happens at work all the time. But we talk to him about, mommy or daddy, we have to go to work, and we always say, and we always come back. So at this point, that's the thing that matters to him, knowing that we're going to come back as a family. I do have some girlfriends with older kids, and I also saw a stat that Gen Zers, they look to their maybe parents and senior managers, and they don't want that. They see a lifestyle of work that they don't want, and I've heard that from some friends with older kids that their kids say, "I don't want to have a job like yours," and I think as we learn to better set our boundaries and truly represent, the optimization that we do in our lives, to create this view that you can get joy from your career and joy from your family, and both things come together towards your whole person. And I saw in the chat too, I think somebody has said about just really sitting down and having that intentional conversation with your kids about the things that fulfill you, the joy you get from your work, the way that you're helping people, the problems that you're solving. And maybe those are the connections that will resonate with these younger generations, especially where the human aspects are more front and center in their psyche, which is a good thing. Talk about the human experiences, whether with our people or with the customers that we help. There's so much good that the insurance industry does in the world to support people and help people. And, whether it's encouraging that next generation to want to be insurance professionals, but even being proud of the work that you're doing. I often say, we're not doing brain surgery here. We're not saving lives, but we're protecting something that's important to somebody's lives. We're giving them peace of mind. We're making a difference in their lives. And there's a lot to be proud of that, and a lot of that pride to share with our kids.
You can be a great mother and a great leader at the same time.
Yes.
Absolutely. I have one closing comment on my own personal experience. Remember, I said I took 7 years off. So just to put that in context, my oldest daughter was in junior high, and the other two, or actually two were in junior high, and one was was in grade school, if I'm getting it all right timing. And then, so I took 7 years off. So they were aware, they were aware when I quit, and then I took the time off. Then I went back to work and literally had conversations with them. You're going to work? Why are you working? They had no recollection that I had worked for all that time beforehand. And I'm like, so they have short memories. They might be loud and vocal in the moment, but all of a sudden if it's how you make them feel. Are you present with them and so forth? And they won't remember that you didn't fold their diapers when they were, guarantee you. I guarantee you. But let's go to the final slide and we'll say our goodbyes. We had some other things we were going to cover. We'll do a part 2. I'm going to make that commitment right now. I don't know when it'll be, but the Catalyst Committee, which is what I mentioned at the beginning, is part of the Women in an Insurance Initiative. We are focused on trying to balance and help and support women and other underrepresented groups in the insurance industry, because we need all of us to be successful and thriving and loving what we're doing. And this is a way for you to get involved. You can email me directly. You can reach out to any of the panel members. If you've got specific questions that we haven't addressed, you can get involved on the pod community. We actually just put together a whole list, and these are incredible resources of mental health resources for moms. It's meditation and gratitude and things you can do to help and support yourself. Take a chance and look at that and do something that impacts you. Go to womeninsurancestemconnector.com. Join us on LinkedIn and All Intent, or reach out to us on Women in Insurance at STEM Connector and be part of what we're doing. And that could just be joining us on a call every few months. That's being part of it. Loved hearing all the stories. Ladies, I hope, well, we're going to do this again, so I won't say goodbye. Thank you everyone for your time. You will get the slides and you will get a recording of the webinar in your email if you've registered. So if you're listening to this and you couldn't join us live, we missed you. Join us next time. So thank you everyone, and appreciate it. Really appreciate it.
I know.
Good Friday.
Thank you.